Welcome back everybody. We are ready to get started building this Tamiya MF-01X chassis. First thing, a couple quick notes. This kit is available with a few different bodies. The Suzuki Jimny body requires the medium wheelbase 225mm and a high ground clearance. I'll point that out as we move along where that becomes important. That is what is covered in step 1. You can see 3 different wheelbases. Moving on from that, step 2 tells you to charge your battery and everything. That's already done. And step 3 is where we actually start building. We're going to start out with the rear differential. And I have pulled the parts out of bag A. And I am also replacing the plastic bushings with the ball bearing set. See if I can get that up there. There's the part number for that. And first thing we want to do, out of bag C, I have pulled out one of the drive cups. That just makes it easier to assemble the differential and allows us to check it. I want to take the bevel gear, put it on there upside down. That way I have a way to hold it. Put a layer of grease around there. Then a shim. Then another layer of grease. We want to drop that down in the diff cup. Now we got a little star shaft, they call it. Little guy. A little grease on the tabs. And a little bevel, small bevel gear. This thing can be fiddly to hold on to. All 3 of them. Put a couple dollops of grease inside the cup on top of the gear. And you have 3 little slots there that these pins on this fall into. Drop that down. More grease. Your other large bevel gear. Drop that on top. Spin it around a little bit. Make sure everything's moving. Another layer of grease. And the other shim. And on top of the shim, more grease. Now you have your diff cover. That has 3 small pins on it. And they'll sit down in the grooves where the star shaft, they call it. Hold everything together. Press that down. Good idea to keep a paper towel or a shop towel handy because that grease is pretty sticky. we have 3 small screws. And remember, you're going into plastic, so you don't want to over tighten. You just want to snug them down. And that is your differential. Take your drive cup, put it in, make sure everything's rotating. Spread the grease around a little bit. And that is it for step 3. Now, you can note on the left side of the instruction sheet, if you're not familiar, if you've never done something like this, Tamiya in their instruction sheets on the left side, they have the actual size of the screws. So if you're unsure about what size screw, you can just hold it up to the little picture on the side and make sure you have the right one. It makes things real simple. And step 4, the A parts tree, part 4. And there is a little piece of self-adhesive foam, and you have to cut, just take a pair of scissors, cut it to approximate size that it shows, and stick it in the right place. I've already stuck it on here. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. I did that ahead of time because peeling the backing off of it to stick it is a little fiddly, and I didn't want to do that in front of the camera for 20 minutes. This is part A4, part A7 off your plastic parts tree. Get it oriented right. Hold it in place. We have the 3 by 10 millimeter self-tapping screws, 3 of them. And again, tighten it down till the head bottoms out, and then just a little bit, because this is plastic, and if you strip it out, then you'll be shopping around for replacement parts, and you don't want to do that. Tamiya's kits, I've never had a issue with parts not fitting the way they're supposed to. They're one of the top companies out there when it comes to making these kits, and they're pretty good at it. So, okay, it's snug down, 3 screws, and we also want to take one of our bearings. This is what comes in the kit. It's a little plastic bushing. The hop-up parts, they call them ball bearing set. This is a sealed ball bearing, and it's going to improve the run time of your battery and prevent parts from wearing out and make the thing run overall a lot better, a lot faster. I just press that bearing down into that little hole there. Then we have what they call spur gear, and it gets a bearing in either end. Press that down in there. There's that. Now the little T-wrench that comes with your kit is the same size. The big end of the wrench is the same size as these large bearings on the outer race. So you can take your T-wrench and press the bearing into place. Make sure you use the big side, not the small side. The big side of it is going to press the outer race. You don't want to press the inner race with the small side because you can damage the bearing. Then we have a metal shaft. A little bit of grease on the end and slide it through. Now we want to take our differential gear. We're going to put some grease on that. Drop it into place. I'm going to take the drive cup, push it through, kind of hold it where it needs to be so it's not moving around. We're going to put some grease on this gear as well. Drop him in. It is step 4. Set him aside. We are on to step 5. Here's the other half of the gearbox, rear gearbox. This is plastic part A2. And we have what they call a counter gear. We need a bearing in each side of that. Come back here. And we want to press a bearing in here. Press it in, make sure it's in there all the way. And this also has a couple pieces of foam tape that I've put on already. Now we want to take this fella again. We want to grease on this gear. Slide our shaft through. Drop this gear right here. Make sure that shaft is in. You got to kind of hold on to all this at one time and good coat of grease on everything. You don't have to cover everything 100% because it will get spread out. It'll transfer it to each other. And then slide this over. Pops together. Again, with our drive cup, make sure everything's rotating freely. And we have 3 screws somewhere. Three by 10. Alright. And again, don't over tighten, going into plastic. Okay, now check everything is working as it should. We'll pull the drive cups out. Move on to the next step, which is step 7. You have 2 of these little brass ball end screws. And a little box wrench. Take your time, make sure they're going in there straight. Again, don't over tighten. Tighten it till it bottoms, and then just give it a little bit to snug it down, because these will break if you over tighten them too much. They are brass. It can be a little fiddly to get them started sometimes. Just be patient. Don't have to hurry. part number B7 from the plastic parts B tree. He sits on here. I believe this is where our shocks mount, the top of our shocks. 2 3x10 screws, self-tapping. Kind of try to hold that all together. And I can't say it enough. Don't over tighten. You don't want to strip these out. Seen people try to use a screw gun, cordless screw gun, to put these kits together, and ended up selling it on eBay because they stripped all the holes out and everything. And that is step 7 complete. On to step 8, which is electronic setup. I did that in the previous video, so we will move on to step 9. And this is, in the first video I mentioned this kit had an oddity. Step 9 is where that oddity is. Your servo setup. Now, step 8 shows you how to attach the servo saver to your servo, which I have already done. And what you have to do is take a ruler, because they want from the, let's see here, from the top of your servo saver here, they want 24 millimeters to the bottom. It's the little tabs on the bottom of the servo mounts, 24 millimeters. Now there's a seam that runs across there, and I just took a ruler and measured. And this high-tech servo is right on 24 millimeters. Now, if you're using a different brand servo, they have little spacers that you can use, little plastic spacers. I think 1.5 millimeters and 3 millimeters, so you can adjust that height with your servo mount. So that's all going to depend on the brand of servo you're using, but make sure it tells you here 24 millimeters is what they want. And I'm using the aluminum servo mount because I'm using a high torque servo, but it's identical to the plastic one. It's just machined out of aluminum instead of molded out of plastic. And I did not have to use the spacers. And we have our little steering rods. Now set these up 17 millimeters in between. This is a 3 millimeter threaded rod, and you want the cups, one facing down, one facing up. And this is actual size, so if you don't have a way to measure it, you can just hold it up to the picture and make sure that you have it right. You need 2 of those. And we'll pop those on. Just like that. And another little fiddly bit, the other oddity, you have part number A3 in step 11 where you mount your servo. And you also have 3 different spacers in the kit. I have to use the fattest one, and that just slides over that little end. I don't know if you can see that. The wire in the way. And this is moving the servo out. And there's a little rail here on the servo mount. And there's also a little rail inside the part. Feed your steering rod through the hole there, and that little rail slides into the other rail. Well, first you got to get the wire in the right place. Just like that. And what they want, flip it over, hold it in place, is they want your servo saver, your steering. You want to use the correct spacer so that the center of the servo saver, the screw head down the center, is even with this line on the chassis part. So use the spacer you need depending on the servo that you have. Then 2 screws. Again, even with the aluminum servo mount, I don't want to over tighten. I just want to snug them down. There is your servo mounted in place. And then we have, from the C parts tree, these are the parts molded in black, whereas the other ones have been dark gray. Two 3x10 screws. Make sure you orient this in the right direction. That slides in there. Don't over tighten. This is the extension that is going to help hold your battery in place. Nobody wants their battery flopping around everywhere. Snug goes down. And there you have it. Got your rear gearbox together and your steering servo for the in place. And next up is step 12, which we will start in our next video. We are moving on to parts bag B, and that is where we will start with the front gearbox. Very similar to the rear gearbox, but without the motor mount. This is a rear mounted motor. So when we come back, we will start with step 12 and move forward. Till next time.